It's Wednesday, October 7th. Welcome aboard to this edition of Barnstable Today. I'm Kevin Friel.
And I'm Andrew Gobiel. Thank you very much for joining us.
We'd like to remind you right at the top that the meetings we cover are available on demand at the town's website, www.town.barnstable.ma.us.
Inclement weather outside has brought us inside to the Town Hall hearing room today. The focus of our conversation today on Barnstable Today, the Lombard Fund. We had an opportunity to sit down and speak with Judge Joe Reardon to discuss the Lombard Fund and its importance here in the town of Barnstable.
Now, just earlier today, Andy had an opportunity to ask a couple questions to retired Judge Joe Reardon. Here's that interview.
Judge, thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it. Tell me a little bit about the Lombard Fund and where this money comes from.
Well, the Lombard Trust is a trust that was created in 1756 by a man named Parker Lombard. And I would describe him as he is described in his will, a free man from Barnstable, is how it's described. Mm-hmm. And Parker left property that he owned along what we now know as Route 149, or Meeting House Way it was called then, to the inhabitants of the town of Barnstable, to be rented annually to the highest bidder, and the proceeds to be used to assist the poor of the town of Barnstable. My guess is that this is probably the oldest municipal trust in the United States now, because keep in mind 1756 was prior to the United States being formed. King George III was sitting on the throne of England.
So how important is it that the town engage in this to help those who are less fortunate right now?
I think it's very, very critical, because there are many people in our community who, through no fault of their own, have great needs. I'm talking about the person who has lost their job, or who has had unemployment benefits cut off and is now facing a winter coming on with no ability to furnish heat for their home or pay for electricity or pay for food or any other of the common necessities of life that you and I take for granted. But if we're up against it, we'd have to look for help someplace. So that's what this is for. It's really to help people that are in need of help.
What is the procedure? How does somebody go about getting these funds?
Well, they apply to the town, and fortunately we have an organizational structure set up whereby people that are seeking help from the town apply to the town, here to the town office, and Len Gobiel and Ken Friel are heading up this group that has been put together for the purpose, I call it a triage, as it were.
Sure.
Looking at applications that come in, determining which are the most needy of these applications, because we have to do something. The funds are not unlimited, they're not infinite, they are finite, and so we have to try and do the best we can to help those most in need. And that's their job, and it's not a task that I'm envious of at all. Thank goodness I've got them, because if I didn't have them, I don't know how I'd be able to do this myself. Sure. I couldn't.
In talking with Kevin, and in talking with my father as well, I've noticed that there are more applications coming in sooner than expected this year, which obviously is a manifestation of the horrible economic times we're dealing with right now. Will there be any changes in the way the money is going to be dispersed? I know you've done it at the start of the new year, and are you talking about perhaps changing and doing it a bit earlier, or what are the plans for this year?
I think so. I think we're going to have to do it a bit earlier because the need is there. And I'm going to meet with the treasurer and take a look at our financial situation and see if there's some way that we can give more this year than we did last year. Each year that I have been trustee, we've given a little bit more. We've been able to increase it. Last year we gave a little over $40,000. The year before that it was a little over $30,000. The year before that I think it was in the $20,000 range. So roughly, give or take, we've been giving, trying to increase it by probably $8,000 to $10,000 a year. I'm hopeful I can do that again this year. One of the things that I view as important for my job as trustee is to try and maximize the amount of income coming in. And I have to be very careful in doing this because there are tenants who rent these properties that Parker Lombard left to the inhabitants of the town. And I can't simply be a bull in the china shop and say to them, hey, I'm going to double, triple, or quadruple your rent. And I don't do that. I work very cautiously and very carefully with them, and I try to be sensitive to their needs. And I think this approach works because they are sensitive to the fact that The money they pay is not going into anybody's pocket. It's going to help the poor of the town. And believe me, when I make that emphatically clear to the tenants, it has a very salutary effect and a very calming effect when I discuss with them the possibility of rent increases, because they understand this is not something that is happening because of greed by the owner or the landlord, you know. This is looking at fair market value, and the money is definitely so desperately needed for the poor of the town, particularly this year.
What sort of, final question if I may, and I could talk to you for hours about this, but what sort of requirements are there for those who apply for the money, and is there some sort of method that they have to prove? I hate to use the word worthiness, because I would think that anybody is worthy of this, but I mean, is there something that they have to go through in order to prove their need and to make sure they deserve the money?
Well, the basic requirement is they must be a resident of the town of Barnstable, because the will limits it to inhabitants of the town of Barnstable, the poor of Barnstable. That's first. Then number two, they have to demonstrate the need. They have to really show that they have done everything they possibly could, and now the wolf is at the door, as it were. There's no other place they can go to. Unless somebody steps up to the plate and helps them, they're going to be evicted, their electricity is going to be shut off, their house is going to be cold, there's not going to be food for their children. We're talking about dire need, really dire need, and that's where your father and Kevin come in examining the applications, in interviewing the applicants, in talking to them. And there is a process that has been implemented, which Len came up with a process, or a thought, a suggestion last year, which we implemented, which was splendid, I thought. And this perhaps sounds very, Dickinsonian or something. I'm looking at this and saying, these poor people applying there, are they really, in that need? But we have arranged a situation where all of the caregivers in the community are now able to share information with sort of you can call it a unified format, as it were. Somebody that applies to the trust for help has to sign a paper allowing the personnel administering this or triaging it to talk to the other caregivers in the community. When I talk about caregivers, I shouldn't use that term, but I'm talking about the Needy Fund, the Salvation Army, the St. Vincent de Paul Society, the Department of Public Welfare of the Commonwealth, the various agencies that typically one thinks of when you think of somebody in need going for help. So we look to see if these other agencies have been contacted by these people, and if so, have they received funding? And I think that's an important thing, so that we sort of try to level the playing field to prevent, I don't want to use the term fraudulent applications from coming up, but the reality is that fortunately this is definitely in the minority. But unfortunately, some people try to take advantage and go and solicit funds from all of these agencies, giving each one of them the same story and not telling them that they've already gotten help from somebody else. So they've made a profession out of this, let's put it that way.
Rather than talking about the possibility of fraudulence, let's end it on this then. I would imagine your time on the bench, the criminal court cases you sat on, the docket would have been made a little bit lighter had the people you had to deal with years ago had these opportunities.
Oh yeah, I think so, very definitely, no question about it, sure.
Okay. Now let's take a look at the meeting schedule for the remainder of the week. On Wednesday, October 7th, the Zoning Board of Appeals has a hearing at 7 o'clock in the Town Hall hearing room.
Also on Wednesday, the Hyannis Main Street Historic District Commission is going to meet at 7 o'clock in the Selectmen's Conference Room.
Then on Thursday, October 8th, formal site plan review has a meeting at 9 o'clock in the Town Hall hearing room. Thanks for joining us on this edition of Barnstable Today. I'm Kevin Friel.
And I'm Andrew Gobiel. Thank you very much for joining us.